I have with us Keith and David, authors of Gold Dust, How to Become a More Effective Coach Quickly. I'm thrilled to be joined by them. So you may see Jack jumping up, which is Keith's terrier, West Island Terrier. Just welcome him too. Keith, David, welcome. And tell us both about your journey. David, we'll start with you. And then Keith will roll with you.
Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate you having us on. So, yeah, my journey, grew up in a footballing family. My dad played. Obviously, he'll explain his journey as well, but he played. And when I was around, he was coaching. My mum played for England, which is a fun fact that not many people know. So I was brought up with two parents that played and were still heavily involved in the game. And I think there was only one option, and it was to end up playing soccer. So really, from as early as I can remember, I was playing. From the age of 7, was playing in academy. I was in an academy in England. Spent my time at academies up to the age of 15. Oh no, sorry, I would have been 14. I was an under 15. Got told I was too small, which back in the day I think it was a thing. The nice thing is now that isn't so much apparent. But yeah, got told I was too small, and at the point wasn't really. I'm not saying I fell out of love with the game, but it put a bad taste in my mouth, and I ended up going to the gym, personal trainer and whatnot, but spent about a year or so out with the game at 14. Just played at school, and I remember going into year 11, which I would have been 15 at the time, so the last year of high school, got asked to go to Wigan Athletic, and went there just to see how it was. It went well, signed on and did a scholar at Wigan, spent 2 years full time at Wigan, and had a lot of injuries through my period there. Played with some real good players, but I just couldn't stay fit. I ended up playing in Spain under Glenn Hoddle, which was fantastic. He was such a great guy and a really good coach, and the staff that he had around were fantastic too. So that was a great experience. And then they had financial issues in Spain, so I came back to the UK, and there was a decision to make of, do I stay in England and sign a 1-year pro contract, or do I go over to the States? And my dad will tell, I'm sure you might mention it, my dad, he played in the States and he'd spent a lot of time here too. So I took the plunge, went to the University of Akron, who had just won the national championship. Played there for a year. I've made some great friends. Some of them, one of them who's one of my best friends now, who's captain the US national team, and we speak every week. But the environment didn't fit for me, and I didn't enjoy the soccer side of it as much. So I transferred to UNC Charlotte, played there, and right in my senior year was one of the top draft picks. We'd spoken to MLS clubs, and I was going in the draft, and halfway through my senior season got a concussion and was 11 months out. So during that period, it was, I didn't know if I was going to play again. So I'd coached, I'd done a little bit, and I ended up moving home with the intention of playing professionally at home again. I got fit and had already started my B license. And during the B license, hurt my hip and had hip surgery, and that was it. I was done. So I've never played since. That was 3 years ago. But the nice thing was, because I was already on my path as a coach, it gave me a little bit of a kickstart. So I spent a bit of time out with the hip surgery, and then I was lucky enough I was able to spend some time from as long early as I can remember, spending time around my dad, going to Leeds, and more memorably for me, going to Nottingham Forest, because I was old enough to remember that, and spending time around some amazing coaches and amazing people. And I think I spent that much time around them that I picked up a lot of the tendencies that those people had, especially my dad. And I hear a lot of people say now that when I talk and when I present or when I deliver, people say, oh, I feel like I'm watching your dad a little bit, or you sound like your dad, which is quite funny. But I've picked up a lot of those tendencies. So, and it's a good thing. So I went into coaching. I spent a bit of time at Man City with the soccer schools and international academies. Spent some time in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, but would also spent a massive amount of time at Liverpool, just watching and learning, and was doing other stuff as well, coaching outside of those two, coaching outside of City and outside of spending time at Liverpool. And I got offered an opportunity to come over to the States, back over to the States in 2018, in the summer of 2018, and was coming back and forth. And then at the end of November 2019, I got a big visa to move over here, and took the role as the global head of foundation phase for a club that's based in Utah, in the UK, and in Tanzania. So from a playing and a coaching standpoint, that's my journey. Obviously, within that, there are many other things that I've done, including writing the book with my dad. But yeah, I think I'm very high on personal development, not just in soccer, but outside of. And I think it's important to have different options and avenues and different qualities, because I think a lot of things tie over in what you do. So I've always been active in other parts of my life, and I enjoy business stuff. I do some stuff around that, and but yeah, there I am. There's my coaching and playing, and a little bit more about me, including a brief snippet of the book as well.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'll come back to you in a bit, David, with some questions after we get your dad's journey. But what a journey! And you're not even halfway through yet. You're like a quarter. It's the first leg, I think. It's the first leg of a 400 relay. So, but we'll come back to you, Keith. Again, thanks for joining us. Please share your story, and we'll come back to you as well with questions.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. There's my best friend on the phone, or on the other side. Listening to David I'm blessed to have him in my life. I really am. I'm so proud to call him a son. But the parallels between both it's unbelievably close on where we've been, what we've done so far. Obviously, my career path is slightly longer than David's. I again I was an apprentice pro at Bolton Wanderers, and I got injured. I think I used the excuse that I had, years gone by, I wasn't good enough, but or the injury was the excuse, but it's actually I wasn't good enough. And then I signed a 1-year pro contract at Wigan Athletic, and again, it just wasn't for me. After which, what do you do? Where do you go with it? And the only thing that I actually thought I knew a little bit about was coaching. So I travelled over to the States. I was a chaperone, if you like. Went over with a team from Manchester and in northwest of England. And I got asked whilst playing in little scrummages out in the States whether I would like to represent a college. College is over in New Jersey. I decided to take one of the offers up, and that was in 1981. And then in 82, we then went on to win a national championship, which was an unbelievable feat. But being an home bird, and then very close to my family, my mum and dad, living away from home was I mean, it was challenging, but for sure, it built some of these building blocks I feel we need to have, and I took those forward. I was asked to deliver whether I'd be interested in doing some coaching at a soccer camp, and bearing in mind I only earned a pittance to what I earned at the soccer camp, I thought I was going to become a millionaire overnight. Worked a week, enjoyed the experience, and thought this is for me. I'm going to get myself involved in coaching. So in 1982-83 season over here in England, I decided to do what's called a level 2 coaching award, and was successful with that. And that opened up all sorts of doors and opportunities. After which I then went on to do the what was called the FA. It was the full badge, but it's now the UEFA A license. I failed in 1984, and consistently tried to improve and look towards feedback and gather experiences out in the field, because that's where it really lies. You can talk about, you have to go out and learn, and sometimes you have to learn the ugly ways. I thought I was going to become the next current Mourinho or Guardiola or Klopp, but it wasn't to be. But I passed in 1985, and then I was then travelling back and forth to the States on a regular basis, working at soccer camps, and just trying to create a fruitful experience both for me and gather understanding of how to work with players. So I then moved from sort of mid 80s, 90s again, traveling in and out the States. I was a director of an independent centre of excellence in in England for the FA, and then shortly after that, I got asked to go over to Leeds United part time to work at their centre of excellence, and spent a couple of years there working with, and again just learning. That's really all it was, on the field, learning, caring, and making plenty of mistakes. But I didn't know I was making plenty of mistakes. You just thought you got it right. And so I moved from there and then went to Nottingham Forest with a guy called Paul Hart. Again, only part-time. These were centre of excellences, and then when they became academies, I got offered a full-time role to become a lead role at one of the 14 to 16 ages, and I didn't take it. The money wasn't very good, and the distance, and then at a point in my life, my mum wasn't very well, so the time it was to go full-time wasn't appropriate. And then I fell out of love with it for a period of time, to then go watch my son play. He was at a centre of excellence or academy. And I then watched David and became a dad, parent dad, looking from the other side of the fence. And I suggest probably making comments about coaches' decisions, and I was just enjoying watching what was taking place and what was unfolding in front of me. And then after that, I got involved in coach education, coaching coaches for the English FA. Again, part-time, and again learning a lot around the methodology and the process of how to deliver sessions, learning the ropes, learning to be around people, learning how to communicate, and and then from that I got offered to work at one of the largest academies in the Northwest, or probably certainly in England. I'm currently at Liverpool Football Academy part-time again, where I'm still learning. And the more and more I'm involved in the game, Chris, the more and more I find out I don't know much about it, because I'm around so many experienced exemplars, field experts that have a variety and an eclectic mix of understandings about, development, communicating, looking after players. And it's as you know, and I think we all know, all the listeners, it's a long-term project. So I'm more in around the development. The result base is important to us, but I'm a development coach, and I'm after 37 years of this, I'm starting to gather a little bit more information, knowledge, and I'm starting to understand it a bit more. In May of this year, I was travelling back from London. I've been away on a course with my son David, and I decided that I'm going to write a book. It started 15 years ago, and I couldn't get past the first sentence. It was very challenging to justify to myself how to break through, and I got stuck. So May rang David, I'm writing a book, and he said, well, Dad, I'll help you. And that's how Gold Dust, how to become a more effective coach, that's how it started. That's the one. Yeah, been a #1 bestseller in the UK for a period of time, so we're really pleased with it. But we mean it, you know, we live this. And what's the, you know, the contents of the book, it's not superficial. There are 12 field experts that we've tapped into, plus our own knowledge and experiences, and we've just, David's, and I'm not being humble about it, if it wasn't for David, that book that you've just shown there would not come together. It's been a fantastic journey. So the book actively started coming alive in the middle of July, and it came out on the 27th of November, which was fantastic. So apparently that's quite a quick turnaround, and it excites the life out of me. I don't generally get excited about much in life nowadays, but that does. And this journey that I'm taking with David is, you know, there's so much parallels. Air license coach in the making, playing career, the connection that I have with my son, the actual meaning of, you know, trying to serve players and equally parents, in actual fact. So they're taken away from this, you know, it's longevity, and so they get a sense of, yeah, these lads, I think they've got an idea of what they're talking about. But you know, it's been fantastic so far, and let's just continue the journey.
Yeah, just brilliant. I mean, both journeys very similar, but also different. I just, you know, there's certain words I was writing down as you were talking both, you know. Keith, you know, what I hear is lots of servant leadership, right? Serving others. And, you know, David, you mentioned person development, not just personal development, but developing the whole person, which is huge, right? And then Keith, as you're talking, I'm just listening to you speak, and 37 years of coaching experience, and just the fact that you're a lifelong learner, right? Surrounding yourself with better people, trying to make mistakes to be, not trying to make mistakes, but making mistakes to be better. You know, family kept coming up, connection, relationships. Just, you know, I feel just talking to you guys, I can see the connection, and I think it's wonderful. And obviously you've gone into why you wrote the book and how the book came about. You said it started years ago, and then David helped, right? And then from July to November, it just happened. And it's obvious to see how it happened. I mean, it's been in there, Keith, for a while, and then David had the ability to unpick that lock, right? He was the locksmith in this case, and said, Dad, we'll put this together. But you know, in talking to both of you, I feel like I've known you for years, and that's a testament to you both, on how comfortable you make people feel. Keith, you just called me last week, and I think we discussed, you know, we just had a conversation which ended up being 45 minutes. And
really?
If we'd have hit, yeah, I think, if we'd have hit record, I think we'd have had some gold dust there. But also, David, our first conversation was about an hour, I think, and I think you'd just come home. And similar things, and I just felt so connected to both of you on a different level, and we'd not met prior, obviously, you know. So I thought just a huge testament to the men that you both are, David, the man you've become, and Keith, the man you've raised. You know, if I can raise my 3 boys as half as well as you've raised David, I think I'm going to be okay, you know.
Thank you.
But just so many questions, right? But let's start with this, if you guys are okay. The book is dedicated to Dick Bate, right? And 10% of the proceeds go to the Giles Trust. And I know he was inspirational for you, Keith, as he has been for hundreds of thousands of coaches around the globe. Do you want to talk a little bit about your relationship with Dick and the things that you did? And
Sure. I don't know how long we've got, to be honest, Chris.
We've got as long as you need.
So I first met Dick in 1984 on one of my first coaching courses, and there was a transparency about a gentleman that he just stood out. You just knew he knew, and I knew he knew. We both knew what was going on. He was just extremely unique, and having known him for 35 years, I'd never known him speak about man or woman badly. I never heard him speak badly about anyone. His technical detail was he was an artist in action. I remember an occasion in Blackpool, which again is the northwest, and was on a course. It was absolutely teeming down. And I remember the day, and I remember it so clearly. Dick was delivering a goalkeeping, and he was diving around like a young spring chicken. And he came off, Chris, full of mud, but he looked magnificent. He didn't walk, he glided. His deportment, everything about him was classy. He was a maverick of his time, a pathfinder. He directed our air licenses, and he directed the director coaching award courses. And in the latter years of knowing Dick, he asked me whether I would get involved with doing some work with the South Koreans, and so from 2017, which was July 2017. That was the last time they actually delivered a pro license with Dick. And there's 3 parts, there's 3 modules. I'd missed the first module. The second module we delivered, and that July 2000, that was the last time I actually saw him alive. We came back, and there's another colleague of ours called Gary Phillips, who's a sports science guy, super guy for Gary. And we had to pick up the 3rd module, and I'd never directed a pro license course. I'm not a pro license. I'm not a pro license holder. But to be asked by Dick to work and present on that was I took that as a real compliment. So when we delivered the last module of the pro license, which was November in 2017, it was in Dick's absence, and he touched people's lives in such a profound way. The South Koreans, they massively missed his presence, as we did. And then, he got a brain tumor, and then, in 2018 he passed. So that connection that we had was, when I say special, there's a part of my life when he passed. Part of my life went with him. I miss him immensely, as I'm sure many others do as well. But when people can leave a legacy like he has, where he'll travel the globe, and so many people have said so many nice things about one man, but genuinely mean it, it just shows the power of what one source can bring. And so in Dick's passing, we started to write the book, and I remember sat in Starbucks with David, and we're trying to piece together what we're going to do. And it was I dare say it was David's idea, so I'm not taking claim to this. He said, well, why don't you dedicate the book to Dick? And I had a moment. I'm not ashamed in sharing with you, but I did have it was quite a powerful moment for me. I'm not saying it's an epiphany, but it's certainly a moment where it connected deeply, and I had to go outside to collect my thoughts. Came back in. Yeah, let's make that happen. Well, it sounds right, fits right, feels right, and then rang Maggie, Dick's widow wife, and just asked whether she would, whether she would give consent to that. and then that was it. You know, that we then the cogs of it all, Chris, about the monetizing of it, we didn't have that together, but we knew there was some type of funding that needed to come from the book. We didn't know to what value, and then we decided as 10% of the profit from the book will go into, as you've already alluded, 10% of the profit goes to the Giles Trust, the brain tumour fund, which looked after Dick in his latter days. And you know, I'm really so passionate about that. As I'm talking about it now, it means so much, because of the power of a soul. Anybody that's listening, if you get an opportunity to look up Dick Bate on YouTube, or you do so. He's never met anybody like him.
And I get goosebumps just listening to you talk, because I was in his presence, and he was always kind enough, regardless of how busy he was and how many people were around, to give you a little bit of his time. Do you know what I mean? Time he didn't have to spare per se. I would be at the conventions, and I would follow him around, and Mr. Bate, could you sign this? Mr. Bate, could you send me your PowerPoint? And I was blessed enough to meet him and Maggie and spend a little bit of time with them and exchange some conversations. So everything you're saying is spot on, and he did glide. He glided. He had an aura about him, didn't he? And just tracksuit on the pitch, and then immaculately dressed, presenting with the almost the blazer and the FA badge and so on and so forth. But
if I can share with you, we again, I can remember this so clearly, and it's not the first time, but we were in South Korea. We're in a place called Paju, which is like one of the national sports centers, national soccer centers, and it was a theory session. So we'd been outside. It was extremely humid. We came in with tracksuits, and then Dick's delivering one of his magical presentations, and so we got a tracksuit on, and within an hour of being outside, we come in, and I've had a shower and changed, and then came the Colonel. Dick, he didn't march, and he just glided in, and he was dapper, three-piece or his suit on, and he just looked immaculate. In terms of standards, and the way that you need to conduct yourself, which is again a part of the particles, which has helped to we've been able to consolidate some of what has been taken from Dick, and obviously many others, but he just left I get those very fond memories of, and I can see it now when you mention about his suit walking in, and just a tremendous guy. What a wonderful man.
He was. And David, did obviously you played a role in your journey too, and you got a chance to be around Dick as well?
Yeah, I spent time around him, but not at that level. It was more so spending time with my dad, and my dad was spending time with him. So I remember it was at I think it was at Lillyshaw. We went down, and Dick was presenting. My dad was there, and I just growing up, whenever I wasn't playing, or whenever I didn't have training or school, I would be in the car. By choice as well. It would be, I want to come, and we'd go. And so I spent time around him, but I know the effect, the profound effect he had on my dad, and that I think. So I touched on earlier about how I, after spending so much time, took characteristics from my dad, but I think it went the same, where he spent so much time with Dick that he learned and took characteristics from Dick that he wanted to use. And I think that it gets passed on, because you see what works, and you see what's effective, and you take it. And for me, I grew up seeing what exemplars look like, and even at the time I might not have understood it properly, but I would see it in essence, I would steal it, and because it works, and I see how players interact with my dad. I see how other coaches interact with him. I see what people say to him, and they say it for the right reasons. And I look at, and I've just observed it, and I look at it and I think, there's a reason, and I've got to find out what it is I can do to become like that. And I think that whenever you see somebody that's excellent at what they do, it's important to know why they're doing it and what the reasons are behind it. But if you can take some of that and use it in your own development, and use it to help other people, then you have to, for me.
Yeah, absolutely right. So the book, David, there's so many great stories and so many great quotes in it. One of my favorite quotes is in there, the Maya Angelou. Do you want to talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah.
And we'll get into some of the stories.
Yeah. So that it's my favorite quote. I actually think it's my dad's favorite quote as well. Among many other people now. People may forget what you said, people may forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I first heard that in 2011. I saw the quote and it had an effect on me, and it's a screensaver on my laptop. I sent it to my dad, and it's the footer in his emails. When he sends an email, the quote is in it. But I think that quote just runs true in all walks of life, in everything you do. You can say stuff and you can do stuff, but in reality, it's how you make people feel. And when people feel good, you're more likely to get more out of them anyway. And I think, like we said, it goes throughout in everything you do, whether you work in business, whether you work in service, whether you work in sports, it's massive. But if we look at, people talk about the sharp end of sports and how it can be cutthroat and whatnot, but in the book itself, so there's a guy called Justin Holbrook who was a rugby league coach. He's the most successful coach in the rugby league era in England in regards to win percentage and what he achieved in the 2.5 years he was in the UK, and we got to know him really, really well. And it opened my eyes, because when you get to the sharp end of sports where you have to get results, because if you don't, you'll be out of a job. You still, if the players feel good, they'll likely perform better. And my dad, he actually mentioned something to Justin, and there's a lot of things in the book where he's mentioned stuff to Justin Holbrook, but one of them was, do the players play for you because they want to or because they have to? And when he came in, when he got to St. Helens, they were struggling, really, really struggling, and he took over, and within weeks, all of a sudden, this group of players, the exact same group of players, were the best team in the country, and were for the next 2.5 years. And you see the impact, and obviously there's a lot of knowledge that he has, but it went beyond that. It was how he was as a person and how he made his players feel. And I've as a player, I've heard, but I've also experienced this thing of breaking people down and breaking players down, because you then have to build them and mold them into what you want. And for me, as a coach, our job's we're not here to break people down and fix them and make them exactly what we want, because everybody's different. For us, we're here to help, we're here to guide, and we want to make people become even better than they already are. And we want to make them feel good about what it is they do. And, the sharp end, it's results-based, but youth soccer is different. As a coach, I think you see it a lot, where you'll have people that are treating every game like the World Cup final. And for me, it's not about the coach. It's not about the ref. It's not about the parents. What they do has a massive, massive impact on the kids, but it should just be about the kids and the players that we're dealing with. And I think for coaches, I think you have to have a purpose in what you're doing. And I've asked myself this question: is what is my purpose? And for anyone listening, what is your purpose when you're coaching? Why are you doing what you do? And for me, in the level that I'm at now, it's development, and winning is important. Don't get me wrong, but it's development. But regardless, I think my purpose is to create an enjoyable and competitive and challenging environment. And within that, I want the players I work with to improve, but I want to be the best teacher I can be to help my players and the coaches that I work with and mentor develop. And I want to make them feel good about what it is they do. And I had experiences where I didn't feel good about playing soccer, and I learned massive amounts from that. I would never want to subject my players to what I experienced. And we talk about it in the book. You can learn from positive, but you can also learn from negative. And my negative learning experiences have played a massive part in who I've become and what I want to continue to strive to become. And that's been a big part of the fuel that's built this fire within me. And it's not to say I'll always get it right. I may say, and I may do the wrong things at times, but my purpose is to make those around me feel good about what it is they do. And I live by that. I think it's so important. I think the quote we've mentioned, it's my favorite quote. I just love the meaning behind it. And I want to feel good about coaching, and I want to feel good about helping and developing other people. But I also want to make them feel good about it too.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I think that quote is actually on the wall in the National Development Center in Kansas, the U.S. National Development Center. And a couple of things to unpick there. Obviously, knowing your purpose, knowing your why, which you clearly know. Rush has 11 human core values. February's happens to be enjoyment. You said you want it to be enjoyable for every person, right? And everybody to feel good about what they do. Keith, do you remember our conversation last week, what we discussed and our similarities? Just to build off what David said there about training session and a certain holiday in the year.
Just remind me, sorry, I missed that, Chris.
Yeah, so it was, you and I were talking last week, and you said you just delivered to 40 children, 40 young adults, and you said that training and football should be like Christmas.
Correct.
Remember
yes,
that?
Absolutely. I do remember that.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll share bits of our conversation that we had?
Sure, absolutely. So, basically, even though it's the 19th of February, no matter what the occasion is, what the day, every time that we go out to work with players, it's going to be Christmas Day. You've got to make them feel like $1 million. I think we're experts at times in finding out what players are not capable of doing. And by doing that, we actually make them more inferior, and the attrition rate goes higher and higher. We're all experts, but effectively what we've got to do is, if we're leaving them with a negative, we're creating a memory in there, and that memory could be the last straw that breaks the camel's back. It could be where they've had a shot or they've had a pass and then we're on the case all the time. What we've got to do is, we know that that's occurred. It has happened. We know that. It's a fact. But it shouldn't be resolved by what they didn't do. We've got to replace it with something of greater importance. We've got to help them and articulate, we as coaches, have got to articulate what the message is we're trying to impart, but articulate in such a way where the players actually understand what it is that they've got to do to improve. We know that they've made the error. So every time that we go out, this Christmas Day feeling that you've got to have it, we're not talking about flowers in the mouth and making them, it's fluffy. It's got to be competitive. The players want 3 things from us. They want 3 things from every session. They want bags of touches, they want bags of games, and they want shots. Now, within that, you're gonna be doing the defending 1v1s, but we've got to look towards doing things on a constructive, positive way. So the assurance that we had last week, Chris, was, and it seemed ironic because you'd also shared a similar experience with me, and at that point, I was actually delivering at a university, and I was presenting in Manchester University, and it seemed coincidental, because you'd brought up this Christmas, presents, and I'd actually mentioned it in front of 44 students, where today's Christmas Day, and when we leave the players, we've got to give them a present, something they can take away that can help them, that can take them on this journey. It might be just the smallest of things to us, but it's massive to them. So effectively, when we do say anything to players, if we're going to give them something constructive, or we're going to say something that's going to be destructive, we've got to be careful on that. We are custodians of this game. We've got to look after it. If we don't look after this game, we're going to lose a lot of players because of our ego, because of our lack of understanding. We're not saying things to hurt them. I get that. The intention, however, or the outcome from the intention might not be positive. So leave them with something of greater importance. It's Christmas Day every time you're giving them a present, every session. And it might be something bespoke, because I think in general, we're asking players to keep the ball or pass it better, or I hear this term quite a lot, which I don't believe exists, but create space or getting to space. Well, we're already in it. You can't create it. It's what you do in it. But the information we impart, if we're doing anything that's going to hurt players, you need to reevaluate why you're doing what you're doing, particularly in the development stages of the game. I know when you go into result base, that result is important, because within management, if you're going to manage teams, you certainly don't go out and buy a brand new carpet for your office, because you're not going to wear it down. So results are important. We know they're important at all levels. But it's how we go about getting the result, and how we look after the development of the game, but more important, looking after the individual. That is, we've got to look after the game more. And I think there's lots of intentions that are right, but just think about and reevaluate. David mentioned you've got to know who you are, and you've got to know what you stand for. Your feedback, if players are not responding, we need to reevaluate. Is it them, or do we have to look ourselves in the mirror and go, maybe, just maybe, it could be me? Because if they don't know things, that's not their issue. We've had a game today. We played in a tournament, and certain players on the park are going to make errors. And in this particular case, it was 1v1 defending, and I had to put my hand up. Listen, you might not know the answer, the players this now. If you don't understand, is it because of you, or is it because of me? And I had to take one on the chin and go, it's probably me, because we haven't given you the bespoke, that little technical detail that can help you, to be not as naive defending. You don't always have to win the ball. So I take one on the chin, and then we crack on, we move on. So that it was a great little conversation that we had, Chris, and I thank you for reminding me about that, because we're, as I mentioned earlier, we've got to look after the game, but we certainly got to look after the young chargers that are playing within it at the moment.
Absolutely. And, obviously there, you said so much rich information, right? Obviously we're custodians of the game. We have a duty and a responsibility to keep children playing. I don't know whether the dropout rates in England is as high as they are in the US. 75% of teenagers are dropping out, which is alarming. And another statistic I heard was prison inmates get more outdoor time than kids do in England, which is scary, right? But just the book is filled, and we could go on for hours, right, about the chapters and stories, and but I also want to be sensitive of you guys' time and our listeners as well. But chapter 1 without going too much into the book, because we don't want to give everything away, because we do want people to buy it and read it. Let's start with that first. David, do you want to tell us where the book's available, and then we can share it in the notes as well with everybody, just so people know where to get it.
Yeah. So the book's available on Amazon. So Goldust: How to Become a More Effective Coach Quickly. In the UK, US, Canada, is available on Amazon. If you live in Australia, I think you can get it on Booktopia. But the place to find it is Amazon.
Okay, and again, I'll put that in the show notes, and I don't want to give away too much, but the book is filled with stories, with you know, talking with 12 experts. You know, you mentioned Justin Holbrook, the rugby league person, and I don't know whether it was Justin at St. Helens, but I think, and I could be off, I think they set up a creche where the players could bring their children and the families could hang out, and they had family days. And I could be off, it might be another rugby club that did that, but just the one of the chapters, I think it's the second chapter, talks about connection, right? And you want to talk a little about that, David, on how important you found connection to be with the role that you're in? Before we got on, obviously you were talking a little bit about your 06 boys and how incredibly proud of them you were for punching above their weight this weekend at the Mayor's Cup. Do you want to talk about, you know, the best way to going around, in your view, building on connection, and then we'll have your dad add his views on that?
Yeah. So that chapter about connection, I think it pardon me, it goes into pacing and leading initially, which, to put it simply, is pacing is when you enter another person's model of the world in their terms. So you aim to match their language, the experience, the beliefs, the values of a person in order to gain rapport with them. And when you pace somebody and you demonstrate that you understand where they're coming from, you're more likely to be able to lead them. So whether it's you're working with, you're speaking to a player that you've just met for the first time, and you're asking questions of them because you want to know more about them, and it could be something simple as, who's your favorite player? And they might come back with, my favorite player is Messi. And in agreeing with them, so for me, my favorite player is Messi too, and I would dig deeper with, oh, what do you like about him? But straight away there, I'm building a connection with a player around something that we agree on. And there is an example in the book where one of the people that we interviewed, and we actually know him very well. He actually taught me at high school. He was a world champion Thai boxer, and he talks about when people come into his gym for the first time, if there are similarities, some of these people, because it's a small world in the fight game, is if that person knows somebody he knows, he'll relate that back and speak about the mutual connection that they have with a person. And I think if you want to lead and positively influence somebody, it's important to know where they are now, and only when you have a better idea of that can you really lead them. And there's a few parts within that chapter, and one of them was about being genuinely warm with people. And there was a quote from Mother Teresa that was used, that we shall only ever know that the good that a simple smile can do, and a genuine warm smile. And when my dad knew Darren Moore, when I first met him, felt like I'd known him forever. He came up, he shook my hand, he gave me a hug, he was smiling, he was using my name. There was just something authentic about him and something warm about him that drew me to him. And I think you have to possess a warmth with people. And I don't think you can fake it. I don't think that's something that you can fake, because if you're not genuinely warm, people will suss you out over time. But along with that, I think the use of people's name is a big one as well, because it shows that you have an idea of them. And the people that we spoke to, Justin Holbrook, when I first met him, my dad already knew him, but when I first met him, he he kept saying my name. And I got this, it's funny because I'm writing a book about connecting, and I'm going, this guy, I feel like I know him. And I didn't actually know him that well at the time. My dad did, I didn't. And I got to know him well, but he would constantly, David, how are you? David, what's going on with you? And asking questions and showing an interest. And there was a correlation between a lot of the people that we've spoke to that did the same thing. And I found that the people I felt warm, I felt a better connection with just in life is the people that are genuinely warm, the people that get to know me, and the people that, I mean, starting off the use of the name, that was a big one.
I think you're spot on there, David, and I think kids will know, young children will know right away if you're not authentic, and they'll call it, right? They can see that off the bat there. Keith, you want to build on what David so eloquently put there?
Yeah, he's articulated that very well. I think in terms of the practical element of it as well is where do you use the name. So I some years ago I got asked to deliver one of the FA. I'm not a psychologist, but David, in terms of personal development, I think there's an enrichment and empowerment process and programs out there in addition to football that can bring so much colour within the game. But I was delivering on, it was called the Level 4 Psych course. It's predominantly it's a theory based, Chris, but practical nature, and it's where you use the word and my particular slot on this 4-day course was, or one of the slots was delivering communication and the effects of it. So, where do you use the name? Well done, David. Well done, Chris. Or Chris. Well done. So where you use the name, does it have an impact? And then the volume and the tonality and the intonation helps to resonate, or can help to resonate and build this connection. It doesn't mean you're going to get it. It just means as you're connecting, the connecting comes from actively listening. So we'll ask questions of players, or the players coming off the car park, and you start interacting with them. Are we actively listening to what's actually being said, or are we're just taking that as a cursory, nothing's happened, and you're not? It's whether you can regurgitate and then reignite them and bring them back into the party, and so you like this music. And so the connection isn't any one piece, it's a piece of many little jigsaw puzzles, but for sure, playing and experimenting with the word, with the name first, Chris, and then the thumbs up, then comes through an action, or just saying the name without any energy, might not invite them or engage them at all. So if I was to say it the opposite way around, where well done, Chris, and then you're looking around thinking, what have I done? So listening to what's going on and using certain words that the receivers providing and giving back is important, because at times it's the silence between the notes that can make a big difference to us. And what we do as coaches, we've got lots of knowledge and information to give and to pass on, and sometimes we might need to keep those in the pocket. We don't have to give them everything. Small little bits, but listen with intent to want to learn more about them. Because the passage of the footballing element is one part, but to get most from them as a footballer or a soccer player, we're going to get to know them a little bit more.
Keith, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think we have to know our sport, we have to know ourselves, but we also have to know who's in front of us and what their needs are, as opposed to coming with our session fully planned and devised, and then thinking, what am I going to impart on these participants, right? What are their needs? So listen, we've been on an hour. I think what we need to do is have a part 2. I just want to be sensitive to you guys this time. I know I'm not sure whether you're running out to a session today, Keith, but there's just so much. The book, I fully recommend. It was unputdownable. It was unputdownable. I think I read it in like 2 days, and I couldn't put it down, and I just loved every stuff in there. I've got little notes in here, and this was on page 51, is why do you play this sport, or what are you aiming to achieve? Little questions and things that people can take away that you can instantly implement into your coaching and just propel you to become a more effective coach quickly. And I can't thank you enough for, number 1, coming on, number 2, sharing the book with me, which, David, you kindly sent and signed, and Keith, when I come to England, we'll get together for a coffee and I'll get your signature in there as well. But how can David, how can people reach you? Keith, how can people reach you? We've talked about the best place to get the book is on Amazon. And then if you tell us how to reach you, and then I'll leave the closing words with both of you guys. And I just feel so blessed to have that our journeys have crossed, and we've crossed paths. So
yeah. So in regards to reaching out to us, there is an email on the back of the book, but also I think the best place now, especially nowadays, is probably Twitter. Funny because my dad he didn't have a Twitter up until after the release of the book. So if you can, you're gonna have to follow him and see what he shares as well. But yeah, so the best place I think would be Twitter, and my I guess username is it handle Twitter handle. Good. Yeah. I wasn't much of a tweeter myself either, but yeah, my handle is DJ Mayer 3. So that's mine. That's probably the best way to reach out, and it's great. I think just like yourself, Chris, we didn't know each other, and you actually. The reason this came about is because I think you heard Jack Walton's podcast and you reached out to me, and from that, you listening to that and you reaching out to me, this has happened, and we've had some fantastic conversations in the short time we've known each other, and I think it's great to share ideas and to learn from other people. So if that's my Twitter handle, if anybody wants to reach out, it would be great as well. And then again with yourself, Chris, I can't thank you enough for letting us come on and giving us this opportunity. We really appreciate it. But I'll pass it over to my dad.
Yeah, we've got all this Twitter stuff and Face stuff. I haven't got I've had to look on my phone, to be honest, Chris, to remember what it is. As David rightly said, wasn't really I've come up for oxygen at the moment. I'm enjoying this experience. So yeah. I'll sort of go underneath the surface and become a grey man again shortly. But my Twitter, is it handle or angle? Whatever it is.
Handle. Yeah.
It's Keith Mayer, Mayer 5.
Okay, brilliant.
And I've got to thank you, Chris, for this opportunity, because I've got to say, when I first started on my journey, this would never have occurred, even if we've had this technology, because you wouldn't be able to get my ego in the place. I knew everything. I got all the answers. I would critique and I would assess and evaluate other people's sessions. And the older I'm getting now, the more I'm starting to think, I don't have the answers. But having a lot of experience on the floor and on the field and with people, I'm starting to open up a lot more and a lot easier. And you've mentioned about one of the chapters in the book, chapter 1, that really is, having done a case study with a player some years ago, that actual chapter is effectively me. It's called the Lone Wolf for those that haven't got the book. But as coaches, I think we've got to have this lone wolf experience where you're in the wilderness on your own, finding your feet, thinking you've got all the answers. Well, when you meet other people who have got a far more in-depth knowledge, you've got to get around those, and you've got to ask the appropriate questions and ask them in a manner where it's receptive. It's not aggressive. It's not I've got the answer. You've got to sit back and listen, because people, they'll hear what you say, but they'll feel your attitude. And I believe my attitude some years ago was, I came across as I got all the answers, and it might have shut one or two doors. I'm certainly more receptive now. So the book and the foundation of all of that came from me learning about me whilst actually doing a case study on something else. And isn't that profound? I'm actually working with some players, and then one of the young players actually gets me, and he doesn't know it to this day, what I learned about me. I'm going to thank him, and he'll never know. So, for those out there, be receptive, find a good mentor, find people that you can lock on to. And what we do is we, adopt what we do and then adapt it to meet your needs. And as long as we're serving players in a positive and productive way, we're serving the game. And, they're not all going to be professional footballers, but we can certainly help guide them to become good people with good values and good principles. And if we're doing that, and you stick by it, and you're consistent with your message, then that's great. And I just use KFC is one of KFC. I know it's an American company, yeah, but we've got them over here, and they're all around the world, haven't we? We've got to be kind. We've got to be fair and firm, and we've got to care for them. And if we're not doing that, get out the game. That is my suggestion. Because I have a little WhatsApp group called the Football Prison, and it tends to be for those that are non-caring and don't particularly pay much attention to the detail about the impact we're having on people's lives. It's a magical game, because one of the things that we would never have had, Chris, is we would never have had this conversation if it was not for a soccer ball.
Yeah.
How many lives does that connect? One ball. Thousands of lives. So we're going to connect with small numbers. Let's take care, look after them out there.
Brilliant. So, kind, firm, care, connections, enjoyable, making people feel good about themselves. And I think, David, the quote from Maya Angelou sums that all up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gentlemen, it's been wonderful. Now, Keith, you told me to look up the word Genshai, which I did.
Yes.
Right? Happiness, and then I had told you to look up the word Kaizen.
Yes.
And did you find it?
I did. I did, Chris. Yes.
Pursuit of excellence.
Correct.
Striving for excellence. Genshai was happiness, and I had the Google description. Do you want to just listen? It's been brilliant. We'll get a part 2. Thank you both for joining me. I look forward to having you both in my journey, and thanks for writing the book. And coaches, I fully recommend we get this, and I'll put that in our show notes, and we'll get that out. And thank you both so much for being on with us. Can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks ever so much.
Brilliant. Thanks, fellas.
No problem.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
I'm just going to try and stop the recording, which I often do not succeed, but I just brilliant. Listen, I had a whole list of questions. I think I only asked 3 questions.
I think it gives us another opportunity. And you're quite right, by the way. When you resonate with someone, and I didn't know it was 45 minutes, by the way, that we spoke last week, because it just flew by. It's just like wearing a pair of slippers.
Yeah, listen, similar conversation with David. It just flew by. You guys are copy paste. You guys are cut from the same cloth, and I love the relationship that you guys have. I love the fact that you wrote a book. And David, I love the fact when you were little, you opted to go. It wasn't like, oh, Dad, do I have to? And you just soaked it all in. Yeah. And it's clear to see the things you've taken on board, and it's great watching you learn from each other and bounce off each other, you know.
We've had a tournament today. We've had, you know, we're off air now, Chris, are we?
We're still on, but let me just see if I can stop the recording for everybody else. But if I might lose you, so I'm just trying to figure this out.
That's fine. There's nothing. We're not going to disclose anything anyway. But so David, we played in a tournament today, and in the tournament we've had Sheffield Wednesday and Nottingham Forest, respectively, at our academy. And so Nottingham Forest was one of the clubs that I worked with some years ago, and I guess it just shows how either nutty or it used to take me 2 hours, a good solid 2 hours to coach an hour and a half, so 4 hours round trip. David was only a baby back then, so he was in the chair, and my wife used to travel, and one of the coaches actually asked about David today, funnily enough, from Nottingham Forest. Gareth Holmes, who knows David. Gareth is in the book, by the way. He used to play for me. He's the professional affairs lead at Nottingham Forest. He's pro license course now, pro license holder. And he's such a wonderful man. But he spoke and does remember, because we've not just become friends off the park. Well, we have. I mean, we become very good friends off the park. But that relationship that you have with your players as you're walking down the street, you know, when you retire, or we retire some years down the line, you know, do you want to be walking down the street with somebody walking the opposite way, or do they come to you fondly? And Gareth is one of those that I remember him fondly, and we do communicate quite frequently. But it just seems ironic as we played against Nottingham Forest today, and as you mentioned about this journey that David has had, as he came, you know, on his own volition. He was part of that as a young boy and a baby, walking, but still a young boy. And Gareth remembers David very well because of these experiences. He hasn't been forced on them. And we've not spoke about my daughter, Catherine, and of course she's not in the book. Well, she is in the book, actually. Yeah. She's on page 46. On page 46, Chris, we've got Dick Bates had a little dog called Billy. And, of course, my dog is called Jack. And then my daughter is called Catherine. So it's been weaved in, so they've been part of this journey, because it is it's a very close bonding. We speak every day. I think there's only probably been, all the time David's been in the States, maybe a day we may not have had any contact, but he'll contact me. You know, we don't drink. I don't drink. I don't know about David. I don't think he does drink.
Not in Utah.
Yeah, that's
yeah, no.
I drink very rarely. I drink very, very rarely.
Yeah. Well, that's the. You're English, you know that we have pubs, and I don't. I do what we need to do. I'll coach, and then I come home and I feel this is my inner sanctum. I feel at home or at peace when I've got my close family around me, and whenever there's any joy or fun at Christmas time, I'll tend to be at the background. They're having fun at next door. As long as I can hear that laughter, that makes me feel good about myself. I don't get involved in their games and antics, but as long as I got my dog, little Jackie boy, he's been quite.
He was great, well behaved. It's because you let him in.
That's right. Yeah, that's good. You've been fantastic, by the way, Chris.
Thank you. It was easy with two guests like yourselves. You know, it was easy.
How did he get on, by the way? You had a tournament.
Yeah. One of the groups, I think, finished fourth, and then the other group won it. I had two groups. Yeah, one group won it. We beat Barcelona in the final. Their academy, I don't know, you know, their numbers were very high, 70s, but their jersey numbers. But it was one of their academies out of Phoenix, out of Casa Grande. David out there in Arizona.
Yep.
So
I trained.
it was interesting.
For a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
How long did that take you to get there, Chris?
It was a couple of flights. It was a couple of flights. It was I got there a day late. One of my flights got cancelled. So then, basically flying all day. It's like 2.5 hour flights, but the time in between, and I didn't get back till 2 o'clock last night. So yeah, up this morning with the boys.
Good.
They tried to let me sleep in, but there was no chance of that. I'd not seen them. So
yeah. How old are they?
17, 15, and 13.
17,
3 boys.
13, and
15. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. Oh, what, 3 boys?
Yeah.
How do they play?
Yeah, my youngest 2 do. My oldest stopped about 2 years ago. He just said, "Dad, I don't want to play. I don't enjoy it." And I said, "Okay, no problem. What are you going to do instead?" So he likes to fish and stuff like that, and likes the outdoors.
Well, that was Catherine, Jan, my wife, played for England.
Yeah.
Catherine, my daughter's represented the country as well.
Wow.
David been in a Premier League club. I've coached internationally. But Catherine, she swam competitively, and we just, David and Catherine both do martial arts. Just fill your boots, whatever it is, and I think if it had been rugby or cricket or whatever else, I think they just tend to follow it. I think it's how you do that. I mean, you can buy books on parenting. You can buy books on anything, but I can share this with you. Whilst David's on there, I think it's good for him to hear this. So David would have been around maybe 7, possibly. He might even remember the date. He could probably tell me the day. But my dad had bought him something which was noisy, and I'm downstairs. David's upstairs in his bedroom. And he's bang, 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 and I'm downstairs trying to do some stuff. And I came up and I said, "Look, stop banging on that thing." I think it was like an instrument. Could have been a guitar or it was a keyboard, David.
Keyboard. Yeah.
He remembers it. He probably remembers the day now. So I'm going to, look, stop making that noise. Anyway, I've not even got to the last step of the stairs. And I hear he's playing again. And I thought, he's not listening. So I've gone back upstairs. I've opened the door. And this, I'll never forget it, ever. I've actually grabbed hold of him not round the neck,
Scruffed him.
On the scruff.
Yeah.
I've told you, and his eyes were popping out of his head, and I thought, yeah, brilliant. Not do that again. So as I've turned around, I've got onto the landing of the stairs, and I thought, what have I done? What on earth have I just done? So his door's closed, and I've opened it again, and he was like at the back of the wall, leaning back, and his eyes were now coming out. They're talking about dilating. His eyes were like organ stops. He's thinking, I'm going to get round 2 here. And I've not hit him, I've just grabbed it. And I sat on the edge of the bed, and David was on my left side. I said, "Come here, son." I said, "It will never, ever happen again. Ever. That will never happen again. I apologise." And this is the book part. I can't, you can buy books about parenting. I'm doing the best that I can. And I apologise. It will never happen again. And we hugged. I've got him, and we've got a special relationship. There's no doubt about it. And I'm not ashamed of saying it when he's my best friend. We'll have conversations, and I'll listen to him, and he's heard lots of stories that I'll just sit and listen to him, and some of it will I'm registering it. But if any parent or dad can have a relationship the way that, you know, I get a small percentage of the way that we get on, they've got a good relationship. There's a purity, and I look to him. I guess you know, you look at the old Ford production line, Henry Ford, and they got the old Model T Ford, I think it was, and you got that going down the line. That's the first production lines. Well, that's what we say. I think there might have been other production lines, but that was the first mechanical production line. Then we get different variants of Fords. Then you get the 2019 model, whatever Ford, top of the. David's another variant of. He's taking whatever experiences that he's gained from being around. I think exemplars, because we're not alluded to the personal development stuff, which I've been around a long time. David was also one of the youngest. There's a guy called Tony Robbins, who's a peak performance coach in the US. Massive. I mean, massive in stature, 6'7", but huge persona, and you know, very positive and productive, and wonderful experience. David actually came with me when you were about 8-ish, 7 or 8. He was the youngest at that event. There's about 1,200, maybe 1,600 people there, adults. So he's been around that environment as I have, and all we've done is just bled in, dovetailed to. I have anyway. I'm sort of an hybridy type where I'll going to be very experiential for me. I'll take bits, and then I've got to then feel it. I've got to get it on the deck and see how it works, and equally around people. So it is a unique relationship. But
listen, you both have a gift. I mean, the fact, you know, you called last week just to touch base and, you know, prepare for this, and just to get to know me a little better speaks volumes about you and both of you. And you know, it's David is a mirror image of you, just younger, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
adding his own experiences, so he's like an old school, new school Keith,
Yeah.
as well as his own thing. And I mean that in sincerity, David, as a compliment.
Yeah.
You know, but honestly, like I said earlier, if I could have just a smidgen of the relationship that you guys have with 3 of my boys, it's going to be very, very special, and I look forward to watching them grow and become men like David. And Keith, what a wonderful job you've done as a father, and of course your wife and Catherine as well. To raise a young man like you have, it's a testament to you and your wife. And David, you know, congrats to you on picking and choosing which parts of the journey that you're magpieing and taking and making your own. And honestly, I feel blessed to have spoke to both of you and have met you. And having read the book, I feel like I know you even more. And after this webinar as well, I just I'm truly grateful and appreciative of you guys being a part of my journey. And I know we will keep in touch and see if we can work on something together.
Yeah, that'd be nice if we. I can't. You know, like 3 questions, and you know, we played in a tour. I've sort of come back, rest, get showered and changed and warmed, and I got little notes here and there, just floating around just joggers and you memory joggers. But if there's a round 2, we're interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
What we want to do, I can tell you, Chris. The Giles Trust is a big thing. That's massive to us. It really means a great deal. So anything that we're doing to plug to get back into the Giles Trust means so much.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. But we had a real big, you know, an outcome, and was fortunate in 1999 actually. No, it was 1999 September. Was fortunate to meet. I was been in the presence of Bill Gates, was on a course.
Okay.
He was in attendance. I didn't meet him personally, but we were talking. And there was also a colonel from the US Army called Norman Schwarzkopf.
Stormin Norman.
Stormin Norman.
Stormin Norman, yeah.
Yeah, 4-star general, and he spoke as well. And Bill Gates, you know, he wanted to get a computer in every person's property. That was his mission. That was his outcome. Is it practical? I think he's probably achieved it, either direct or indirect. We want to get this book in every coach's shelf because we believe it. Is it going to change the planet? No, we don't. We just want to. The X's and O's are huge. We've got to be very careful of how we. It's just a little. It's a stepping stone to bring alive what actually works rather than theory. There are examples within it. We want to get it on everybody's, and you know, we want to. Tomorrow we're on not Talksport, 5 Live BBC, which we've been asked to go on. Yeah, it is. It's a compliment to, you know, people realising what's going on, but it's becoming a mission for me. I don't get excited. Now I'm excited. We want the book everywhere. We don't want it out there just because of the sentiment. You know, it means a great deal. We want it there because it adds value. And if it does do that, then it's done its job. It's because there's another book coming out as well, and it won't be out yet, and David will talk about that. Because there's not a prelude to it, but there's another book which I'll have parts of. It'll leach out certain things around this, you know, gold dust. So yeah, I think it's important. I think it's important for you to know what our outcome is. Yeah, we do massively care, and when we generally reach out to you, we reach out because we want to, not because we have to.
Yeah, I know that.
I'm going to tell you that. Because as busy as we are, I think we'll always create time for, you know, you resonate to people that who are like you, and if you like them, it's because there's something similar. So it was been wonderful. I thought the way you conducted it was, and I don't know what the reach is. I've no idea how many were there, or how many's listening, or how many were listening. It's where it goes next. And I guess you know, the back office of whoever's doing, is it Sky?
Sky.
Whether they actually know what's, you know, the numbers that are out there, any questions coming forth. But as David did say, by the way, I did actually. It's not strictly correct what he said about having on Twitter. I actually had. It was David that reminded me. I'd opened a Twitter account in 2000. I think it was 2013. I'd not long. I think I've been doing some stuff for England, and I go on Twitter, but don't do anything. I don't even understand it. So when it came around to doing the book and the plugging of it and promoting of it, you need to get on Twitter, David. So he said you're already on one. So I opened 2 accounts. Oh, I opened another one. So I actually started following myself. So there's me and David. So I had 2 followers. So I'm following myself. Yeah, it was.
Did you find yourself? Did you find yourself?
David found me. He was the one. They said, "You're on. This is you," and because he gets this handle, I can't even remember. Yeah, it's the few. It is what it is. We work in a slightly different space now. To what it used to be for these ball big cone grass players. That's
it's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, the changes. You know, the technology, what you can find on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. It's unreal. The Twitter sphere, and it's crazy,
isn't it? Well, he's just come back, by the way, Chris.
Hey Jack.
He won't be able to hear because he's as deaf as a post, but he's there he is, David. He's after a chew stick, I think, Chris. That's what he's after.
Yeah.
He'll probably, the chances are he'll get one too.
No, he won't. No, he won't.
Well, gents, listen, I can't thank you enough. I'm going to let you go. We'll do a round 2. I look forward to the book 2, and I'll be in touch with both of you. All right.
Thanks.
Be well.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thanks,
fellas.
Speak to you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.